And speakers are asked to keep their comments to less than 3 minutes. Did you all hear the first part of that? Do I have to do it over again? Briscoe, Shepherd, Bell, all here. So if you could keep it to less than 3 minutes, there will be an annoying bell that rings when that 3 minutes is up. Feel free to submit any other comments you have in writing to any one of us or to Mr. Fix. So we will now open the public comment period.
Commissioners, we don't have anyone currently signed up for public comment.
Do I have anybody signed up yet? I'll get the...
Anybody out there that wants to speak? Has something to say?
Please. All right, hearing none. We'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda has on it approve the minutes of the December 19th, 2018, January 2nd regular commission meetings. Authorize the executive director to execute a release and settlement agreement with Star Indemnity and Liability Company and State Farm Fire and Casualty Company. Affirmation of the Code of Governance and Conduct as referenced by resolution number 1181. And for those of you who don't know, that is the Code of Conduct for we commissioners. Would encourage you to look at that. Authorization to sell a vehicle, vessel at an auction pursuant to resolution 1349, and approve an increase in the base salary of the executive director's salary by 3% over his 2017 annual salary effective immediately.
If I might propose the motion, a motion to approve consent agenda items A through E.
I would respectfully ask my fellow commissioners that we pull item C from the consent agenda, and I'd like to talk about that at the next commission meeting. I have an issue with one item in that. So if we could, if you would, I'd like to pull that from the consent agenda and discuss it later.
I would agree to that. Agreed. Do we need to vote on that, or are we okay just pulling
We
it?
need a vote.
So a vote to pull item C, remaining items A, B, D, and E on the consent agenda.
Agreed.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we move to approve the consent agenda, or did we just do that?
You just did that.
Thank you. Okay, action items. Item number 1, authorize the executive director to execute a 2-year contract with the Resources Group for the maintenance and upgrade of the accounting software.
Bob Jenkins is our analyst in our finance department. He's going to do a little presentation.
The action before you is the approval of a 2-year contract with the Resource Group to provide support for the port's financial software. This contract features unlimited help desk support, 8 quarterly server reviews, a systems technical review, a year-end update, an upgrade to a more recent version of the software, and project management and coordination support to ensure that the continued compatibility with other integrated port management software. It's important to keep the port software up to date and to incorporate the latest enhancements, to keep it working at top efficiency, and to keep the software as secure as possible. This plan provides the necessary support to do those things and keep our investment secure and efficient. Staff recommends approval of this contract. I can answer any questions you might have.
I have a question. Now, the Resource Group, are these folks we've been using?
Yes, they helped us to install the software in the first place.
Okay. Did we purchase the software from this group?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yes, we purchased the software. They helped they did the installation.
Okay. Right. That's all I have.
I have none. Motion to approve. Commissioner Briscoe?
Have no more questions? Aye.
Commissioner Shepherd? Aye. Commissioner Bell? Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Diane, would you do me the honor of number 2?
A motion to approve a write-off associated with the delinquent account of UK Halsey Northwest LLC, doing business as UK Sailmaker, in the amount of $18,508.02.
Thank you, Diane. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Brady Scott, real estate representative here at the Port. UK Halsey Northwest LLC is a Washington limited liability company owned by the UK Sailmaker subsidiary out of Victoria, Canada. In August 2014, they entered into a lease for 2,000 square feet in the Marina Square building located at Squalcombe Harbor. Rent for the premises was approximately $2,500 a month. That included the base rent, additional rent, and the leasehold tax. They operated the Bellingham facility with local employees under the limited liability company, but the principals live and operate out of Canada. In June 2016, UK Sailmakers began accruing late fees due to delinquent rent payments. In January 2017, they requested to terminate the lease early, claiming financial reasons. Port staff explained that they were contractually obligated under the lease through August 14, 2017, and requested continued payments. Nonetheless, on January 31st, 2017, UK Sailmakers laid off their staff, vacated the premises, and left the keys hanging on the wall. They paid rent and late fees through January 31st, 2017, to the point they vacated the premises, but then stopped paying rent from the point forward despite being contractually obligated and despite the port's request for payments. UK Halsey Northwest was formally notified of default, which to date has not been cured. Apparently, they're also delinquent with the IRS, and they are no longer doing any business under the Washington Limited Liability Company. The delinquent rent for the 6.5-month period from February through August 14th amounts to approximately $16,000. Late fees accumulated in the amount of approximately $4,500, and there was a $500 default notice fee. These charges are offset by a deposit in the amount of 1 month rent for a total write-off amount of approximately $18,500. This situation is fairly unique. Lease tenants do not typically move out early and stop paying rent. Fortunately, the port's occupancy rate is typically above 95%, and the write-off amount is a small percentage compared to the $6.6 million revenue out of real estate. Implementing a write-off will allow the port to balance its books in 2017. The good news is that the premises has now been leased to a new longstanding tenant. So the port staff recommends approval of the write-off.
And what I understand is we would be facing a fairly substantial legal fee if we were to move forward with this and try and collect from a company that clearly doesn't seem to have any more money.
Yeah, the next step would be legally to file judgment in Washington court. Legal fees could be upwards of $3,000 or more to start that process. The LLC likely has no assets, so it could very well be spending good money after bad.
That was my daughter's ringtone, in case you want to know. I have a different music for each one. That would be Lauren.
Question for you, Frank. If this company's to start up business under this name somewhere in the state again, do we have recourse to gain some of this back at all?
Likely not. If they open a new business, you could make the argument they're a successor in interest, but finding them, chasing them down would be pretty darn difficult. That's why we get on these month-to-month, a month in advance or a month's rent.
Okay.
I would just add to that, though, your action here to write it off doesn't preclude you from collecting it from them in the future.
Right.
You can still go after them for it in the future. You're just writing it off our books, so we're not carrying it as a receivable.
Thank you for clearing that up.
And my question was, how long after the termination of this lease did we get a new tenant? Was there any time lapse, or when did the new tenant occupy the premises?
Yeah, the Northwest Exploration just occupied it this month.
So there's no credit to be given on the old lease?
We were actively marketing the space as soon as they vacated and have been trying to fill it during that period of time.
Any more discussion?
I have none.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Action item number 3.
Authorize the executive director to execute a purchase order with ATS Automation Incorporated to provide and install a new control system for the Bellwether Building HVAC system in the amount of $134,419.51, plus a 10% contingency for a total cost of $147,861.46.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Gibson, Project Engineer. This project replaces the HVAC system, the HVAC control system in the Bellwether building with a more modern system that is more efficient. Explained in the commission packet that's in front of you, this qualifies for a generous PSC grant, which covers 40% of the project cost. This PSC incentive, coupled with the expected efficiency improvements, should allow us to recoup the project costs in less than 4 years. I should note that the contract amount is covered by the approved 2018 capital budget. And I also wanted to mention that in addition to the project's sponsor, Judy Harvey, and our IT manager, Scott Crocheron, we're joined by Chris Olmsted from ATS Automation, and he can help address any questions that might come up. Staff's recommendation is that you approve this project. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Oh, baby.
Tell us a little bit about the existing system. How old is it?
The existing HVAC control system, I don't have an answer for that. Do you know, Adam?
Yeah, with the original construction.
Okay.
That was in 99, you said?
99, 2000.
So approximately 18 years old.
And how long would we expect this new HVAC to last? What's the lifespan?
Well, I just need to clarify that the existing HVAC infrastructure would remain in place. It's just the control system that we're replacing. So I don't think we've received a timeline on the expected duration of that, but if I had to guess, it would probably be around 20 or 30 years. Chris, do you want to comment on that?
That's typical. Expected life cycle is about 20 to 25 years.
Repeat it in the microphone, please.
So just for the audience who weren't able to hear that, the expected lifespan is about 20 to 25 years typically.
So we're just replacing the control unit that runs it, not the.
Correct.
Okay. I have no more questions.
So the back row is waiting for me to speak. I have a little bit of personal experience with this HVAC unit, and I will give you my background just a bit. When the original building HVAC was established, the building was not cut up into individual offices the way it is today. And the system operates, it doesn't operate with individual offices having their control. This one will give the offices individual control, and we have not had control in those offices of our own heat. So if you're cold in your office, you can always go to the bathroom because it's always warm in the bathroom. And it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but this will fix that so that we actually have control, I read.
That's
Shirley McFerrin, Real Estate Director. Just for clarification, this is for the Bellwether building across from the Bayview building.
When are you going to do mine?
5 years. We're on the 5-year window.
But it is budgeted for the Bayview building this year as well, so we'll come back to that.
You're not as smiley
I
now.
was going to recuse myself.
More time in the bathroom.
I was ready to say I don't need to vote on this one.
So Commissioners, you'll note too that 40% of the cost of this is being paid by Puget Sound Energy because of the efficiencies gained. Lynn Murphy is here from Puget Sound Energy, so if you wanted to thank her, you could do so.
Thank you. We need all the help we can get here. It's very much appreciated.
And there's a couple more buildings you may want to look at down the road.
So as long as that has come to light during this discussion, we do have something in for the building to, because that'd be rather tricky.
I was kidding on 5 years. It's later this year as well. For whatever reason, we're doing the Bellwether building first, but Bayview building is also in the budget.
So either had him sweating or freezing, one of the two.
I think we wanted to make him sweat a bit.
Wrong season for that.
I have no further questions. Thank you, John.
Can you quantify the savings, the efficiency savings between the old system and the new one?
The PSC incentive is based in two parts. One part is the upfront project costs, and then the second part is the anticipated improvements in the efficiency. So I'll hand this over to Chris, and if there's a microphone, he can be heard by everybody else.
We did a review of the current operation of the building, and we believe the improvement in performance on the utility costs will be about 25%.
That's pretty good. Plus the individual being able to stay in their comfort zone.
Here, here.
And that is one of the performance requirements from Puget Sound Energy, is that the building is actually comfortable.
That's nice.
Are you going to do a drive-by inspection and everybody waving and smiling out the window?
Okay, I don't have any further questions.
I have none.
I have none. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approves. Oh,
So what time we got? I would recommend that if we have other business, that we move it forward at this time and take advantage of,
I agree, is it time to move maybe the,
Presentations?
yeah, I would like to see the,
if that's agreeable to my fellow commissioners?
absolutely. Are they ready?
Yeah, I'm trying to decide which would be better first, district energy or the waterfront district update. Does it matter to you, Brian?
Nope, I think they're both, they're independent, so either way.
Let's do district energy first. I think Pat Power was going to try and get here for the Harcourt one, so.
Actually, I was talking about other business moving forward,
Oh,
but
sorry.
that's okay. As long as we don't dissuade anybody from speaking or so on and so forth.
All right. So good afternoon, Commissioners. Adam Fulton, Director of Facilities. This is a brief update on the district energy system in the Waterfront District. It's no commission action is being asked for this time. The Waterfront District is a very unique opportunity to incorporate sustainable strategies into that development. And there are, of course, monstrous efficiencies that can be gained, such as what we're doing with the HVAC systems, this sort of thing. And there's also a whole community of businesses that want to be part of that. They want to be part of smart development like this. So, and what we're learning as a staff is that we're very good at the nuts and bolts of this thing. We got pipes going in the ground. We are getting ready to hire an operator. However, there's a whole component to this that is basically that we want to sister ourselves to an agency such as Sustainable Connections that is connected into that green network, that whole green industry, much stronger than we are, and really help us put this whole thing together. It has a very strong connection to economic development. So to do that, all we're doing here is just updating you on a hire we're making of Sustainable Connections, a local company, been in business about 16 years. And I've asked Rose Lathrop, who is the, let's see here, the Green Building and Smart Growth Manager. I've been with them about 6 years. And I just want her to explain to you what Sustainable Connections does. I think it's a very good hire for us, and hope the Commission's pleased with it. So, Rose Lathrop.
Hi, Commission. Hello, my name is Rose. I am the Green Building Smart Growth Program Manager at Sustainable Connections. Sustainable Connections has been around. We are approaching our 16th birthday. We are a business membership organization dedicated to creating a strong local economy focused on sustainable business practices. So we really try and leverage local business as spearheading and the driving force for creating that vibrant community that we all love. And we work with about 2,000 businesses a year, and we have 5 different program areas. So we have everything from a food and farming program, an energy efficiency program. Food and farming looks at kind of creating a strong local food economy, so food and farms and food producers. Then our energy efficiency program is really looking at, we have the Community Energy Challenge, much like the Bellwether project you just talked about. We've gone into over 600 businesses in this community, helping to facilitate energy efficiency upgrades. We have a Sustainable Business Practices program, and that helps businesses with all kinds of things in trying to come up with measuring their sustainability and finding new sustainable practices, whether that's towards zero waste or others. And then we have our Think Local First program, and that's really the foundation of our organization and how Sustainable Connections got started. And that's really trying to drive people to shop and think more locally, and how we can create a more local economy so that our money stays in our community. And so then there's the Green Building Program, and that's been part of Sustainable Connections for about 13 years. And the mission is to promote healthy and efficient buildings and vibrant neighborhoods so that we all have an improved quality of life. And we work in sort of 3 buckets. We do education and technical assistance. We also do market development, and so we work on both sides of that, helping to get the architects, engineers, builders all familiar with the type of buildings that we need to have more green infrastructure, green buildings, and then also working on the smart growth side of things, looking at what the land use types of things that we can do. So we have a large network of folks that work with us, and I did have a PowerPoint, but I don't know that it made it here. But so anyway, I can show you that we have, there's 15 different businesses locally that are supporting our program through sponsorships and financially. So we have this great network that we've been working on for over 13 years. Sustainable Connections has been involved in the waterfront redevelopment since 2001 when it all started. And that's been through Derek Long, our executive director, participated in the Waterfront Advisory Group and the Waterfront Futures Group. We were the ones to help launch the LEAD ND for the waterfront, really looking at those sustainable practices, sustainable development practices for guiding the master plan and the development regulations. We had one of the first LEAD ND big pilot program kickoff meetings here was through Sustainable Connections. We also did a district energy white paper in 2001, really looking at what are the opportunities for district energy, and that was just a way to start the conversation. So we've been having the conversation about district energy for a long time, really trying to move this forward. Every year we have the port or the city come to our Sustainable Design and Development Conference and give an update on the things that are happening in the waterfront. We know that there's been a lot of progress. There's through the master plan and through all the visioning, the goals that have been established for the waterfront are amazing, and we have an amazing opportunity, and I don't need to tell you that. But now is the time that we're going to see all these things implemented, and we need to have someone there that's helping to carry it through. So that may be in terms of convening folks together to make sure that we're staying true to what the vision is. I think the port and the city are doing a phenomenal job already. District energy and getting that into the ground is such an amazing first step. So we're super proud of the work that everybody's done so far. And the city is doing, those first roads are all green roads certified with district energy. And that is something that we can't wait to tell the community about and make sure that everyone knows all the progress that's being made. So we have untapped potential. One of the things that happened with Sustainable Connections and the port and the city years ago was an eco-district incubator program that came out of the Eco-District Institute in Portland, where city top staff from both the city and the port went to Portland and they did 3 days of training on thinking about how they can do sustainable practices in the development. And they all came back, and then we had this meeting in this room where we had all the top officials, every department head from the city and every department head from the port was all in this room, facilitated by the Eco Districts Institute. And out of that really came the Waterfront Utility Master Plan, and that being sort of the foundation for how we could make this site the most sustainable. And it's been amazing to see how that progress, the convening the heads like that was able to move things forward to where now we have pipes in the ground. So using our network of relationships that we have throughout the community, we have taken folks on trips to Vancouver twice to actually see and feel and touch, meet the people that are involved in district energy so that people can understand whether that's port staff, port commissioners have all gone up. And that's been, I think, really valuable in terms of just trying to understand how these systems work and how it'll work on our waterfront. So we want to continue to help convene the technical assistance that's needed for making sure these sustainable practices move forward, as well as being able to communicate to the public the value and everything that's going on. You know, I want to scream at the rooftops right now, all of the cool stuff that's going on. And so this is this great opportunity, and we're excited about the opportunity to work with the port to kind of showcase all of the things that are happening and to continue to make sure that everything, that the vision of the waterfront master plan, all of that work is followed through with. Any questions?
Thank you. In my short time as a commissioner, it's been a very forward-thinking process to work with the folks at Sustainable Connections, Derek Long, your executive director, and folks like yourself. And I think it's a great asset to the people of Whatcom County to have that group here. And moving into the future, I think that it's going to be very good that our staff can work together with you and do the best for the folks of Whatcom County that we can do. So I applaud Sustainable Solutions and what they do. I'm glad that we have them on board. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I would second that, and, you know, recognize that the project needs both guidance to achieve its aspirational goals it was set out to do, and also that assistance in liaison to the rest of the community. I think Sustainable Connections is well positioned to be that liaison to both the business community and the wider community to really describe the benefits, the positive work that's been going on, and the opportunities that this project represents. I don't know if you want to speak today or if it would be a future more technical question. For the district energy, we're putting in a 4-pipe system, and the previous commission voted to do that because the costs were pretty similar and comparable to go from a 2-pipe to a 4-pipe. We've seen much more interest in utilizing the heat-based efficiencies out of the district energy and less of utilizing the cooling capabilities. Does Sustainable Connections, or you have any ideas about how to entice or get some more interest in utilizing the full range of efficiencies there?
Sure. Well, I think the waterfront is such a blank slate, and we have so much opportunity, and so who knows what projects might come forward. When the first round, there was a utility that we looked at quite a few years ago, and at that time, we were really just looking at the commercial mixed-use area and not into the industrial area. Now I think we're thinking a little bit broader, and that perhaps bringing in that industrial area into the district energy system and thinking about what kind of clean tech businesses might be interested in that. So what it really does is it keeps all the options open, and hoping that you know, some people are going to have waste heat that we need to get rid of, and some people are going to need you know, that it just keeps all the options open. It's future proofing. Additionally, having a 4 pipes in the ground at this time really allows for the utility to make the decision on exactly what kind of systems they want to have and what they're going to bring forward. So it just keeps all options open, which I think at this point is the best we can do.
Commissioner Shepard, I may point out in our previous commission discussions about what to put in the ground, one of the things that we tried to look forward to in a future vision is a possibility of another large freezer plant down there, so to speak, cold storage units, and that's where the 4-pipe system would come into play.
Yeah,
was one of the items. So as we were trying to decide what to do there.
So less dependent on, say, Harcourt building that into their residential units and more potential for an industrial use.
Both, but yes. But that's all I have.
Would you briefly give us a 20,000-foot view of why district energy is different from what the people in 2020 know as their energy system, and how it,
Sure.
and how that energy is beneficial?
Yeah, well, and I actually brought with me the white paper that we did in 2011, so if anybody's interested, I'll leave some copies on the back. Really, district energy, and we're seeing these systems more and more as people are looking to reduce their carbon impacts. So it provides additional efficiencies and reduces carbon substantially, depending, of course, on your heating source and how things are done. But there's quite a few examples. Vancouver, of course, is leading the way in district energy. They have quite a few systems up there. Portland, Seattle, there's systems everywhere. And this is where instead of having your energy piped in through wires and spread in a traditional grid, this would be utilizing heat, waste heat from opportunities on the waterfront. We have two really awesome, creative, innovative solutions, and one of those is utilizing the Encogen plant. Has steam coming off their plant 80-some days a year. And in the early estimates, although nobody hold me to facts on this, but early estimates was that's enough waste heat to heat the entire waterfront, downtown, and western, if we were to utilize that. So that's a huge carbon offset. We also have the city's largest sewer pump is located right on the waterfront, and there are opportunities where you can do heat exchangers and take the waste heat from your sewer. You don't actually get into it, but it's on outside the pipes. And then that can be used to heat. So you have these waste heat opportunities. And then depending on the types of systems, there can also, so this is piping that will go throughout the waterfront, utilizing water most likely to distribute the heat. That then, depending on if you have one building that's calling for heat and another that's calling for cooling, you can share those loads. So it's just a really efficient way to deliver heat, and you get efficient sources of heat. So the two of those together combined make for, some of the estimates in the Waterfront Utility Master Plan, the WUMP. It's anywhere from about a 50 to 80% carbon offset.
Thank you. And then my understanding too is that on the other side of this is we need enough demand to purchase that. So can you kind of walk us through what we might need?
Yeah, well, there is the pace and scale of development does present a challenge for determining the future of district energy. It's different in Vancouver, where, say, they have the South False Creek, where they did the Olympic Village, right? So they built that all out at one time. They knew exactly what it was going to be there. They knew what their demand was going to be. So it was very easy for them to put in their sewer heat recovery and heat the entire village. Here we do have a different scale and pace of development. And so really that's going to be where the RFP that's going to go out in the next few weeks to solicit for utilities, they'll be able to really look at what does that look like, what is the cost-benefit relationship there. And so, and as much as the technical experts will be able to try to forecast what the development is going to be, we're going to be really looking at probably providing some interim heating solutions, whether that's like a gas boiler, before you get to the spot where you put in the infrastructure for the sewer heat recovery or go over to the Encogen plant. But there is opportunity for us to get started right away and build up as development increases.
And so that RFP process for the utility, that is essentially the managers of the district energy system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so in Vancouver, who is the manager? Do they have an external utility, or was that taken on as a city function?
Not a city function. They're all private utilities.
All
There's probably 8 different utilities in Vancouver that do them.
So the sooner we get off our collective bus and get this thing built out, the better for district energy.
Yeah, well, and it also, I mean, making sure that we get every possible new project that comes on, making sure that the pipes that we have in the ground are utilized most efficiently, getting all those pieces in play is great. And then I get to tell everybody about it.
So I guess one thing that comes to mind to me is if we've only got a couple, 3 buildings down there, the energy costs of those 3 buildings are going to be fairly high unless it's supplemented somehow. Do I read that into this or not?
No, I think all of that will be handled with the utility. So one of the things that they've, at least the other utilities that we've talked with, and this would be part of the RFP process in evaluating, is to ensure that the utility costs would never be higher than you would pay through PSE.
I see, okay, thank you.
I have nothing more.
I have nothing more.
Adam, are you done?
Just about.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
I'll move out.
Super, thanks.
Thank you, Rose. Immediately, we're going to ask Sustainable Connections to help us with a few things. One is to help us select an operator via an RFPS process. We're going to ask them to help us get memorandums of understanding in place between us and key players such as Puget Sound Energy. And then third, and probably maybe most chiefly, is help us message this both to local communities and to our local community and to surrounding businesses. So thank you, Commissioners. Any questions? Yes.
And so is this contract all specific to the district energy, or are they going to be moving outside of that into other green building throughout the project?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
still
really
unclear
a
on that.
sustainable strategies. It's the whole suite of sustainable strategies we're considering for that site.
So not limited to the district energy? This
You're
is
correct. The
much more
Commissioner's
broad.
correct.
Great.
Thank you.
Anything more?
What do we have? We could, if my commissioners so felt moved, we could move to other business. I have a couple of items that we can move that forward, and if everybody is,
Yeah, I have no
Okay with
problem with
that?
that. It's fine. And I don't see Patrick here, so.
okay. The prior commission and I spoke, we have a storage yard, commercial fishing gear storage yard over in Squalicum Harbor. It's called the Bone Yard, the storage yard, called the Messy Yard, called several things. We talked about relocating this yard to a different area. It's basically used, or fishing gear that's used throughout the year with the vessels, and fishermen store their stuff in there. As we're growing, as our harbor's growing and other things are going on, the feeling is we need to move it, and I agree. It needs to be moved somewhere close by where it's accessible. We have other things we'd like to do. We have the Fisherman's Pavilion that we're slated to do at some point in time. There's some other things in the wings for some of the area as our Sea Feast grows each year. I think we're going to need more space for that. And we've kind of started the ball moving. And what I would ask my fellow commissioners to join me in doing is asking staff to maybe draft a letter to send to our fishermen and our tenants that we're going to start discussing where to move it to, so we can get input from them on our ideas of where to move it to and what would work for those folks that do store stuff in there. One of the things that as a fisherman, and I've stored stuff in there, and I know folks that have stuff in there, over the years, things that have happened is it's been a bit abused. We have a lot of stuff in that storage yard that's been stored there for years and years and not been used, and some of the boats have gone away and stuff is just kind of stored there because it's easy to store there and it's cheap. I think we need to renovate our system a little bit so that it's a storage yard for gear for vessels, but it's actively used, and that's the stuff that's in there. Possibly, maybe we have two storage yards, one for the larger vessels equipment, and maybe one for the smaller vessels equipment at a couple of different spots to break up some of the stuff so it doesn't take as big an area. But if I would like to ask our executive director, Alan Birdsville, to move forward with a letter of notification that we are going to do something, so folks can have input, maybe put together some evening meetings or a meeting so that we can have discussion forum on how to move forward on that and get everybody's ideas, but we need to get moving on this. We've been talking about it for a year and a half, and I certainly would like to move forward with our Fisherman's Pavilion down there sometime, and this would actually help move that forward, so.
Is the concept for the pavilion to be at that same location, or I
There's
understood it?
Well, there's
slightly
several, there's a
different
couple of
spot.
different ideas on that, and that's part of the discussions that would take place, and maybe yes, and maybe no. There's been 2 locations discussed, that one and then one maybe over to the west, more towards the harbor itself. However, we need, wherever we displace something from, something's gonna have to go somewhere. So to move that stuff out of there, and we displace whatever is, if it's not there, we put the building. If we put the building somewhere else, whatever's over there is gonna get displaced, has to go somewhere, and we only have so much parking and so much area there. And this is a storage yard. It's not an active working area, so to speak, whereas the pavilion would partially be that. And, I mean, you go to this yard, maybe, some people may go 5, 6 times a year, other people may go once a year, some people might not go for 2 years. Just depends on what's stored there. So if we can get together with the folks, find out the needs and what they think, but I'd like to get the process started.
So point of clarification on that for me is, the boneyard has a connotation to me. I've cleaned many out. They're storing stuff there rent-free.
No,
So
they're
they're
not.
paying rent.
Yes, you're charged by the square foot, so to speak. There's slots, and then you're charged by square footage,
So there is a
by the
cost.
month. So there is income off of that storage yard, yes. And it was designed to assist the fishing fleet, so it's not a high rent.
Does it need to be that close to the water?
Well, once again, at a point in time, it was fine when we had lots of room, and it's handy. I mean, it's handy. But it's a storage yard, so most of the stuff that's stored there is not used all the time. You move it once or twice a year back and forth. My storage yard is 25 minutes from here. So if I'm storing stuff there and I'm switching gear over once or twice a year, sure, it's an inconvenience because you don't have to go over here a block and get it. It'll take you a little bit longer, but I think we can interject things into it, like maybe a boom truck or a trailer truck or something to make sure that everything gets moved, in accordance. It may take a few minutes longer, and it may have to drive over there to look at your stuff instead of just in the parking lot. But I believe we need to move forward and try and address the situation, change things around for the better.
How many
for
customers?
everybody.
How many customers would you say we have on that?
Boy, Alan would have to,
Are we talking 10 or are we talking 50?
Good afternoon, Commissioner Alan Birdsall, Manager of Marinas, and you caught me on that one. I think we've got 50 to 75 spots in this current storage yard, and then we also have one up in Blank, too.
and, some folks have 4 or 5 spots or 2 spots, so you don't necessarily have one person per each spot, and there's still the same. But I'd like to get some notification out to the fleet and to the tenants that we need some input on our ideas of what, I have some ideas, and I'm sure other folks have ideas, and the Working Waterfront Coalition is gonna definitely wanna have some input on this. Jim Kyle is here. So I'd like to get I would like to ask my fellow commissioners that we move forward with having Alan and draft up a letter or a notification, if you want to call it that, a notification that we're going to move forward with doing something and get everybody's input to see how we can best fit everybody's needs. So in asking, I would ask a head nod or a yay, or you can't vote, but if that's if that's palatable to you gentlemen, I'd like to.
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard of it, so I'm coming up to speed, but yeah, I see no reason not to at least explore the ideas. So.
Thank you.
And what are the possibilities? Where do they go from here?
Well, actually, we've talked about that. One of the possibilities, Shirley McFerrin with real estate, last year we discussed it quite at length, some possibilities, and the best one seems to be over towards cold storage. We have property over there that's about the same size. Is it? Shirley's a little smaller, or?
Yeah, I mean, it would be, we try and do square foot for square foot. but
Right.
Somewhere in this general vicinity, possibly somewhere over in this area.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of options, and like I say, I'm sure we come up with ways to move things so that it addresses the issue of move, because it's pretty handy to move right here, but as we grow, I think, we'll figure it out.
Is it essential for everything to be out flat on the ground, or is there any
No, you
potential
put
for
one-
vertical storage?
Flat area.
That's optimal, yeah.
I think there might be some potential for racking in a certain section of it, but the rest has to be flatted. The nature of the equipment, I think, is rolling it in, rolling it out.
Generally, when you get into the bigger boat stuff, it's usually a flat area because it's heavy stuff and so on forth. That's why I spoke to maybe possibly a smaller area for the smaller vessels where you could do a racking system, where you could double up, so you gain more ground. Most of that equipment is usually smaller, could be picked up with a forklift pretty easy and stored on a rack that's sufficiently built.
Are those going to be as easily accessible as that?
Well, no, it wouldn't be as easily accessible because and actually, the boneyard that's circled on there isn't the boneyard, it would be.
Well, I gave that as another option. So you're looking at the
Okay.
3 replacement options.
Right.
I can move it, but I'm going to lose all my markings.
That's okay, I can follow. Oh, yeah, right here.
Yeah, it's right there.
That's pretty
Then your
accessible.
question again, please, if I try and throw it.
Is it going to be as easily accessible?
No, nothing is as easily accessible as having it right next to where you are. But then again, I don't know anybody in that boneyard that moves any more stuff than I do. And my building and property where I store all my stuff is on the Kickerville Road out in Birch Bay, Linden. It's 30 minutes from here. So if I can move my stuff from there to my business and make it work, it certainly can be moved from over there to these folks' business and make it work. If we can assist them in doing that, for the folks that don't have the equipment, the trailer or the truck or whatever it takes to move it, that's where it comes into play, making sure that there's equipment to move, the equipment that needs to be moved.
And do we provide the equipment?
My answer to that would be yes.
And we do that today. We provide a forklift and other means for people to move equipment around. There's a procedure for checking it out, et cetera.
And one thought that's in the back of my mind is we are moving it further away, so right now, if you want to move it from the existing boneyard over to your dock, you rent a forklift, you pay by I think it's the half-hour minimum. If we're going to move this further away, then I think there's going to have to be compensation on those charges, because the port's going to gain something out of moving that stuff somewhere. So I would think that we would have some kind of compensation that people aren't charged to move from that far away to where they need to get the stuff to. I mean, that's just one of the things I'm trying to get this started so we can talk about it and figure out how to make this work for everybody.
Maybe we give 20 minutes free or something, yeah.
So that was my one thing in other business. The other thing is, I got an email, and I'm sure maybe you gentlemen did too, from a Judith Atkins at the Mount Baker's Group Sierra Club, requesting us to be at their meeting. They're requesting, they said they would like to have you, our port commissioners, not just a commissioner, but our commissioners at this meeting on, what's the date here? I think it's anyways, if I can figure out what the date is. Did you receive that?
Yeah, invitation for 119.
Yeah, right. All right, right there it is, right in front. So, my question to you gentlemen is, are we all going to attend? Or?
I don't know yet.
Because I can't call you up and ask you. I mean, we need to
Yes.
do this in public right here.
I don't know yet. I'll have to look at my schedule a little bit more.
Okay, so anyways, I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we've been requested as a commission to attend this. Usually we get a commissioner to attend,
Right,
but
right.
they've requested all commissioners.
So I would just ask that if you are going to go, let Diane know, and then if more than one of you is going to be there, she'll notice it as a special meeting, and we'll be
That's why I was trying
compliance
to
with the
bring it up
law.
so to
Yeah.
give Diane time to give notification.
So my response back was going to be, I need a little bit more lead time than what she gave us. I mean, this just came in. And it's
Welcome to our world.
3 days away. So,
Wait till you get the one tonight that's done, you gotta be there tomorrow morning.
yeah, the odds are pretty slim, especially on that Friday, that I'm gonna be able to get there.
Okay, I just wanted to bring it up so we could, I
I'm actually gonna be in Portland.
don't see a time on here. I haven't gone to the Facebook,
It's 6:30 till 8:30.
6:30 to 8:30?
So if you guys would represent,
I'll definitely be there.
Great. I'll confirm with you, Diane, if I'm going to plan to attend.
I will not.
I believe that's all I have. We've talked about most of the other stuff upstairs, so yeah, that's all I have.
So if it's okay with you, I'd like to adjourn for maybe a 10-minute break, and we'll reconvene at 5:30 for the public hearing.
It's fine with me.
It's okay.
Don't forget to beat the gavel. The official.
We will adjourn for a short 10-minute break. write us. Anybody signed up?
We don't have anyone signed up currently.
Anybody want to say anything? Public comment period?
This has got to be the first. I don't remember nobody saying anything. Come on, we have no takers? Nobody wants to?
Come to the microphone, please.
Either one to one in the center and let us know who you are.
Boom out with my big voice here. Have you guys ever considered examining the concept of wave boor for electrical generation, so possible power source here?
And could you introduce yourself, sir?
Well, I'm Dave Bach, just concerned citizen here, kind of getting a clue on what's happening.
Introduce the what? Say that again.
Wave buoy generation for electrical, the waves bend and you got it hooked up to term. Yeah, has the port ever examined that as a possible energy source?
Don't ask the two new guys.
Oh, I'm just kind of curious. It's something I'm familiar with from prior manufacturing experience, so.
I do know that there's been some companies on the coast of Washington, from Neah Bay down to La Push, Washington, that have been looking at doing some buoy energy systems on our coast, but that was, I believe, about 7-8 years ago, and I've heard nothing much since then on that. I'm not sure if we have, not being intimate with what it takes to get that surge for the buoy to create the energy, I'm not sure if we have enough wave energy in Bellingham Bay that's consistent enough that it would be worthwhile to do. But certainly that has been looked at on our coast as of recent.
Anyone else? Okay, moving forward, we have a waterfront district update. And you are?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Gowron, Director of Environmental Programs. I'm also the Waterfront District Project Manager. This Waterfront District, the format of this update for the Waterfront District is something that Commissioner Briscoe would be familiar with, the format and the purpose. But just for Commissioner Bell and Commissioner Shepard, I'm going to take just a quick minute up here up front to kind of talk a little bit about the background and history of these updates and what we try to cover before jumping into the meat of the discussion here. But yeah, so for the past couple of years, Sylvia Goodwin and I have been trying to do relatively regular commission updates on the Waterfront District. We don't have them on a reoccurring schedule per se, but we try to do them at least quarterly if we can. If there's a significant amount of activity going on in the Waterfront District, we could do it potentially every commission meeting, but usually at least quarterly, maybe on a monthly basis, we'll come back with information that we try to keep the commission informed on. So really, these are for informational purposes only. There's not generally a vote or an action item, but we do sometimes ask for general commission direction on things, kind of like some of the discussion earlier today, for a head nod. Are we moving in the right direction? Are we considering all the things that the commission is concerned about? Are you hearing things that in the community you want to bounce off of us, questions and answer kind of session as well. So we do then try to focus on some of the really active components of the project at any given time. We'll go through the projects that our partners are working on, not just port projects, but City of Bellingham, Harcourt. This is a large, complex project that has a number of moving parts all the time. So we have lots of different updates that we can provide to the Commission, Department of Ecology, Department of Natural Resources, our tenants, of course. So it's not just the GP campus. The Waterfront District itself, as you know, includes the 237 acres from the I&J waterway all the way down to the tip of the Cornwall Avenue landfill. So that's our marine trades area, the aerated stabilization basin, the Georgia Pacific campus, Cornwall Avenue landfill and Cornwall Beach Park, and then of course the shipping terminal and the log pond area. So there's a lot of things that can be happening at any given time in the Waterfront District. So we also then like to use these as opportunities to preview things that might be coming to the Commission at future meetings. So there's potential action items that maybe a master development agreement amendment or an interlocal with the city. I'll touch on a few of those things tonight that aren't really action items, but want to make sure that you're familiar with things that could be coming up for a vote at a future Commission meeting. And then of course, it's really just an information exchange, an opportunity for early and often touch base with staff so that we're all on the same page as we move forward on the projects down here. So that's the background, and anytime feel free to interrupt me as I go along as well. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and jump on in here. This is one of the slides that we try to start out with. It's probably not too clear to the folks in the audience, but I think on your screens you can see what we've got going here. This is a list of ongoing topics of projects that we like to update the commission on. We change these around as pertinent to the discussion of the day, but we do try to hit on some of the general themes. These include not only our projects, but also project partners that have things going on. What I was not going to do today, we could spend a whole update on probably on any given one of these. What I'll do today is go ahead and just walk through them in a little, on the typical high-level detail that I do. If any of you have any specific questions, we can set up a meetings on those. I can send you additional information. We can get you what you need on this. This is really just a progress update as we move forward. One of these at the bottom here, we will spend the majority of the time, the rest of the update talking about, though. So we have a number of Model Toxics Control Act or MODCA cleanup projects within the waterfront district. So we're continuing to make a lot of progress there. The Mercury, there's a Mercury interim action that we just completed. Ben Howard in the Environmental Division was the project manager there, who wrapped up the offsite removal and offsite disposal of over 600 tons of mercury impacted soil from the south portion of the site. That's wrapped up, and now we've paved that, and it's ready to be used, at least for the foreseeable future before we do our final cleanup in that area. We are underway now with the Whatcom Waterway Phase 2 planning. We've briefed the commission on that. There's going to be an ongoing discussion with the commission on land use regarding the ASB, other elements regarding the Whatcom Waterway Phase 2 work. And then a few other projects that we haven't spent a whole lot of time lately on, but the Central Waterfront, which is the Marine Trades Area, that's a Model Toxics Control Act site. That RIFS, or Remedial Investigation and Feasibility Study, is done, and we're now working with the Department of Ecology to define the final cleanup and move into the next phase, which would be engineering and design there. Also, the Cornwall Avenue landfill, the engineering and design report for that is actually out for public review and comment right now. The public comment period closes on that on January 31st, but we do anticipate extending that. We have received requests for a public meeting on that, and the Department of Ecology is coordinating on scheduling that now. So we'll probably have that document will be out for review for a little while longer. And then finally, the chlor-alkali remedial investigation and feasibility study. The chlor-alkali is the southern portion of the GP site where the majority of the mercury contamination is. The whole document that defines what our proposed cleanup for that's just getting in the final phases of wrapping up, and we're anticipating having that out for public comment, review and comment sometime in February, depending on the exact time, but in the next few months for sure.
Brian, the Cornwall landfill, is that primarily being facilitated, the public comment, by the city? Because that's a city project.
It's
right?
actually, that's an interesting one. So that is a port-led project. It's majority owned by the city and Department of Natural Resources. But we were the lead project proponent from back in the day before we did some property swaps where they now are the property owners. We have an interlocal agreement with the city and DNR on how to manage those projects. So we are the lead party, but we work really closely with DNR and the city on it. But the process that's underway right now is with the Department of Ecology. So the ecology is leading the public comment period on this engineering design report. So we help out, we'll participate in the meeting, but they are the lead agency at this point, yeah.
I have a question on the same area, Brian, and we had a meeting the other night, and I think you were with those folks before I was there. And when you left, they had some questions for me about the soil that's under that. And maybe you can clarify it while we're in this meeting. The Department of Ecology determines what to do with that soil, correct?
Right, correct.
Can you tell me what in there, in the Department of Ecology has assessed that soil as toxicity, what it is and what the level is?
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. You know what I could do is I could pull up a map really quick, but actually go back up to this one. So, Rob, you had the annotator on, right? So this is the Cornwall Avenue landfill area. On your screens, you can probably see it. There's a couple things going on there. One, that entire area, the majority of that area is actually a municipal waste landfill. So that was the former city dump. So dump trucks backed up to the bay and dumped garbage into the bay after collecting it from garbage cans in the neighborhoods. And that was not engineered. It was not, but at the time, that was the practices of the day. But since that point, it's been closed. And then we've been working in the recent years with the Department of Ecology on how to clean that up and contain that material in place. So there's a step we went through, which was the RIFS. That determined the preferred cleanup. Then we developed a cleanup action plan. That's actually Ecology's document. And we entered into a consent decree, which is a legal document that says, we will do this cleanup in this way. And that defines the cleanup. What the cleanup alternative or what the cleanup approach is to contain it in place, cap it with a liner, shoreline, armor the shoreline, stabilize the shoreline. It's not actually all armoring, but stabilize the shoreline and contain it in place and then monitor it over time. So that's the cleanup. Right now, what the comment period is on the engineering of that cleanup. So what type of liner to use, how thick is the liner, what's the type of pipe fittings that were used for the landfill gas collection system. All those engineering details, what's the grading of the slope to make sure that it maintains drainage appropriately.
Right, and the liner you speak to would stop any kind of leaching?
That's right, yeah.
Of anything from that to the,
Yep.
the water?
That's right. And it's all contained. We have documented what it is contaminated. It's contaminated material with refuse as well as other elements that are in there, like that comes out of the refuse, metals, some CPHs, other types of contaminants. But it's all designed to be contained, isolated, and then a park built on top of that. Just like Maritime Heritage Park, that's built on top of a landfill. There's a number of examples of how this is done.
Is, now, the soil that's under the white tubes or covers, that's low-grade dredging materials out of our harbor, is that correct?
That's right. That material came out of the Gate 3 dredging project. That material was then taken over to the Georgia Pacific site, dried out in order to make it more into less of a sediment, into more of a soil material. It's low permeability, so it actually helps with the cleanup in and of itself. It does have low-level concentrations of dioxins and furans, which are kind of ubiquitous everywhere. So it does have concentrations, so we are gonna isolate it, but it's lower than any other concentrations that are existing at the site already. So it's designed and approved by ecology to be used that way.
Very good, thank you, Brian.
And Brian, will that site have public access in terms of a beach with a gradual slope like we see at Maritime Heritage or?
Yeah, yes, it will,
somewhere?
in certain areas. The city of Bellingham went through an extensive master planning process for that whole Cornwall Beach area. So there's a city-approved Cornwall Beach Park master plan, and it includes not just the park elements, but in parking lot, the playground structures, all the stuff that could go in there, as well as habitat and public access on the beach. The cleanup and the park development are being designed together so that they can ensure that the cleanup can be done, and then there could be public access and beach-like elements that can be built into it. There's going to be isolated to certain areas because of the way that the site's oriented based on wave modeling and wave action, but there are areas that we've identified that could be softer bank material. Yeah. Okay, so I made it through one. The other ones we got moving on here are the binding site plans. So these are the type of these are the elements that will allow us to create parcels and sell property and lease property in certain areas throughout the site. So we have completed a general binding site plan already, so that's not on this list. We are underway with the specific binding site plan number 1. We've already received comments back from the city on that, so we'll be revising those comments. They're really kind of notes on legal descriptions, that type of thing. And so once those are done, we'll have a final specific binding site plan that will allow us to create a parcel for the waterfront residential, which is the second project that Harcourt has proposed. I'll talk a little bit about that one in a little bit more detail later. And then we anticipate a parcel sale to Harcourt here in early 2018. Granary Avenue and Laurel Streets are obviously under construction by the city right now. The Phase 1 construction, which is the first stretch next to the Granary building, that's anticipated to be complete. It's underway right now. It's anticipated to be complete in April to provide access to the Granary building, with the remaining sections of Granary Avenue and Laurel out to Cornwall to be done by about the end of the year. I have fall of 2018. It's probably likely to be, early winter 2018 that'll be wrapped up. And that includes everything that, like Rose was talking about, complete green streets, the full sidewalks, cycle track, all the elements that are involved in that. And we can provide a more detailed update as that project progresses.
And utilities into the Granary building?
Yes, correct. Yeah, utility connections for the Granary building. Yeah. And then that also includes the district energy piping that we were talking about earlier.
And that's all the utility connections for the first 3 building projects they're going to do along the water there too?
Yeah, there'll be stub outs for a full set of utilities for all structures, then stub outs for connections, future connections. Waypoint Park is another city project. That is a multiple phase project, but it's underway right now. And actually, the infill area of former Central Avenue, and then the infill that connects to the Granary building, that's all part of the park actually, and that's complete. And so I think it's open for access now. It's for pedestrian access only, but it's there, it's ready to be used. And then when the remaining portions of the park are constructed, that'll connect down to the new beach, which is under construction now. And they anticipate the park completion in spring of 2018. The other element that's underway right now is the acid ball or the waypoint art piece that is underway. They're doing the lead-based paint abatement on that right now, and they're planning on relocating it over closer to the shoreline soon, so then the artists can start working on it. It sounds like the name of the transport company is Oxbow Mega Transport. Will be moving the acid ball over there, and so this should be pretty cool to see. Harcourt has a number of things underway as well. So grain rebuilding obviously is kind of waiting for the roads to be done so they can finish up their projects in there. We have received the project memorandum for the second project that Harcourt has proposed, which is the waterfront residential along the Whatcom Waterway. They're underway with permitting right now and actually met with the city today. Since their team is in town in preparation for the open house tomorrow, they met with the city team today regarding some pre-application and design review. And we anticipate that will continue moving forward. They also anticipated they would potentially propose a third and fourth projects here shortly, maybe in early 2018. And we're going to be working on probably a master development agreement amendment and the board mill access. That's probably one of their projects they're going to be proposing to work on. And then the last one, and this will be the majority of what we're going to talk about the rest of the update here, is the sub-area plan amendment. So we are underway right now with the sub-area plan amendment, the revised layouts that we've proposed. We are doing a community involvement and have open houses, and we'll talk in more detail on that. Technical studies will be ongoing, and we're starting to revise the actual sub-area plan right now with the anticipation that we'd submit the application April 1st. And then from that point forward, there'll be a year-long planning commission process and city council review, and finally port and city council adoption probably in a year from now. So that's where we're at on a number of moving projects right now. What I did want to do is highlight the majority of the discussion here is now going to be about the community input and then planning for the open house as well as the sub-area plan amendment. We've briefed the commission on this a number of times already, but just in the way of reminder, this is our existing plan. This is what's been approved by the city council. It's adopted in the sub-area plan. This isn't the exact drawing, but it shows the layout along with a few modifications that we've made. It shows the existing structures. I should use the pointer. The existing structures of the granary building, the board mill building, and the alcohol plant, as well as the modified layout of the Granary Avenue and Laurel Street, which are under construction right now. The main park element in this layout is the Commercial Street Green, which is oriented in this direction, as well as the main connection point, which is the Commercial Street Bridge. And this shows the existing view corridors that are approved in yellow here as part of the existing sub-area plan that's currently adopted. And to be clear, this is what we have, and if we don't do the revisions that we're going to discuss here, this is the plan that's approved. This is what we'll be working with and working under. So this is also a 3D rendering of what that looks like. This is from the city's permitting handbook. This is probably not an accurate representation of what it would truly look like, but it does show the potential full build-out of the downtown waterfront if you maximize all the bonuses and floor area ratios. It shows this from the bird's eye view. And you'll see a few of these views from the proposed changes as well. So this shows the Commercial Street connection, the Commercial Street Green. The granary building is over here. It does retain the granary building and the board mill building, but I believe the alcohol plant's gone in this particular layout. So that just shows another graphical representation of that. You've seen these before as well, but we have the two proposed modifications that, based on the city team's input, Harcourt's work with us, the Port Cities team, or the Ports team, we've proposed a few alternatives that we think improve on the existing layout. And we've referred to them in two different ways. We've called the waypoint connection, which is the one on the left, as well as the maple connection on right. And this is a part of one of the informational handouts that we've done. Commissioner Briscoe, last time you asked if I could put these up side by side, and I wasn't prepared to do that, so I tried to squeeze these in so you can really compare them side by side.
Thank you.
And so this shows the waypoint connection layout. It has the kind of more of an angled and sloped or swooping park through the area, and the Maple Street, which is a more centralized park access that cuts through the park or through the site that way. Another difference is that the Bay Street rather than Commercial Street is the primary access point, and those both come into parking garages rather than a bridge, and I'll show some other graphic representations of that. I think the Commission's familiar with these as having seen them before, but I just wanted to highlight that's what we're taking and soliciting input on currently. This shows the similar view from the previous one that was from the existing plan. It's a 3D bird's eye view that will be, and I'm gonna highlight a few of these just for the commission here tonight, but we'll have these in much greater detail tomorrow night at the open house, bigger boards, more ability to sit down and compare these side by side. But the one on the left here, again, is waypoint connection. You can see the park that kind of comes through the background here. This is the Bay Street connection with stairs down. Parking decks underneath here, so you'd come in here in a vehicle, drop down into parking decks under here. That's why this is elevated up here. Similar here, this is the Maple connection that cuts through the central portion of the site and then out to Cornwall Beach. Again, you'd have a parking garage under here. You drop down into a parking garage from Bay Street as well. So really similar in lots of ways. I'm going to go back to this previous one. You can see they're relatively similar in lots of ways. They just kind of the main differences are the orientation of the park through the site, the location and distribution of development parcels throughout the site, as well as how much of the downtown area is brought down into the site versus dropping straight down into the park immediately. So those are the really main elements that we see the differences on.
1 second, Brian, can you back up to one slide?
The 3D
On the
one?
waypoint connection, you were pointing over there, the vehicles are gonna come in and go into the parking area. Are they gonna enter at the back of the, where would they?
Yeah, and I've got another figure that kind of shows looking back this way. But yeah, so you come in on Bay Street, and then there'd be a speed ramp down that drops down into the parking garages. Pedestrians would stay up at that upper level.
Stay in the middle and the,
Yeah, the cars stay in the middle. The pedestrians are on sidewalks on either side. I'll show you a view from the other angle. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, it is, and this is what we're really hoping to get out of the open house tomorrow, is to really talk to people face to face, to sit there and explain these, because some views really resonate with folks. Sometimes map down resonates, but we want to try a variety of different ways to explain what we're proposing. So here you go. So these are a couple examples of some renderings that the Harcourt's Architects D2 group have put together. I think they're really nice. They do a great job. We have a number of other ones that show these.
yeah, I see it there, and I didn't notice it this way.
Yeah, so this is that what you were talking about, Commissioner Briscoe. Coming in from Bay, you can see how that speed ramp drops down into the parking garages here. Pedestrians could come on either side. They'll stay up at that elevated area, and then this would be the stairs that drop down into the park.
And back to the right there on that particular one, that's the other speed ramp that drops down into the building to the right there?
Here?
No, on the one you were on, the upper left. That's the one going into the left-hand garage, and the other one, is there one?
Oh,
back?
no, I think that would be one entrance to both garages. You could go either way. Yeah.
Okay.
And these haven't been detailed designed, so what the exact layout and how you would access, but that's the concept, is that you'd have a speed ramp down. Then the engineers would have to make sure that they are all accessible. But that would be one main entrance to the parking garage. And then this is looking from the park back up towards Bay Street, kind of a Harbor Steps area kind of feel. That's the idea, is that you'd have these elevated areas that are up above the park in both layouts, and then you'd have a staircase that comes down into the park with parking garages and then commercial space along the face of the area. So a lot of these elements will be defined further, but we're just trying to show conceptually what the concepts are and how that would interact, how people would interact with the space. So,
Can you go back?
Yeah.
In that middle image, for the view corridor here, the view corridor appears to be mostly buildings. Is that just a product of how it's drawn, or would we expect the view corridor to be more expansive to the?
That's a really good
water?
question. I think there's a couple. The one thing we'll have is a board that shows the current existing view corridors and then the proposed modified view corridors. And they are angled, and there are areas where we would have views through buildings or through spaces that could have buildings. Typically, right-of-ways are commonly used for view corridors. I mean, that's because it's a reserved area, but there are buildings on either side. I think it depends on how close you are, where you're at, from what perspective. So we have a variety of images that show that. But there are, for example, the Maple Street alignment. We have a view corridor that is, if you're up by a proposed view corridor, if you're up by the farmer's market, the Opportunity Council's right in front of you, but looking down Maple Street, you can see the tops of the tile tanks. And so we've been working with the city to say, okay, we want to maintain at the bare minimum that even from the downtown area, that you could always see the tops of the tile tanks. So a view corridor alignment down Maple Street, and then when you're in the space, you'd have a different field that would look out towards the water. And so there'd be a variety of different ways to look at the view corridors. But we do have the alignments, and tomorrow at the public meeting, open house, we'll have those laid out in more detail. So what we've been doing for community outreach and feedback, we've tried to get the word out on this project for a number of months now. We have done brochures that we've passed around and sent out to a number of places. We have set up a waterfront@portofbellingham.com email. We've received over 100 emails to that email address. We try to respond personally to those, and they've actually spurred a few kind of good conversations with folks, which has been good. 95% positive. I mean, I've been really actually fairly surprised at how positive folks have been. They've been leaning towards the Waypoint Park alignment a bit, but I'd still say it's still not a clear direction. But we've been trying to reiterate that we're asking for input not only on which alignment people like, but what do people like about it, or what do they have concerns about. So we're not only just trying to pick one, we're trying to get what elements do they like or have concerns about. We've had dozens of neighborhood and association meetings. We've met with the Marine Advisory Committee. We've had one-on-one and small group discussions where we've met with people to get that same feedback. We've had an informal Q&A session here in this room. Tomorrow night, there's an open house at the Granary Building, obviously. We're going to go in a lot more detail and have from 3 to 7 tomorrow, so a good chunk of time. We've developed an online survey. Commissioner Shepard, that was one of your suggestions. We've got that underway. We hope to launch that here today or tomorrow to really get that out, to keep soliciting that feedback. We've had these brochures, and as well as then we had provided this response to the Riveters Collective AMA Ask Me Anything session that Commissioner Shepard and Pinky Vargas participated in. So we're really trying to get information out to folks. And so far, I've heard really positive feedback on the efforts. So.
And Brian, I want to really thank you and Sylvia for your time with those AMA questions. It was really appreciated. And
good.
You guys really went above and beyond by answering a lot of quite technical things that Pinky and I certainly were not able to answer ourselves.
Well, that's what we're here for. So lean on us if you need anything. If there's anything like comes up, we're happy to do that. It definitely you can go deep into the weeds on that stuff, but we wanted to make sure that let people know we've thought a lot about this stuff for a long time. So I'm glad that resonated. So for tomorrow, we have the open house at the Granary Building. There'll be Port, City, Harcourt representatives all there. We will, it's tomorrow from 3 to 7. We're gonna have 6 topic stations where we'll have a variety of different folks that are available to answer questions with boards and graphics that we can talk through. We will, at each one of those, actually we're looking for a lot of different ways to get community input. We've got comment cards that'll be available at every station. We'll have flip charts that we can take notes on and put them up on the wall, and sticky notes on the actual drawings. If people want to do that to say what they like, they can continue to send us emails. We'll have a dedicated comment station where we'll have even more comment cards and a comment box, and then obviously the online survey, we'll be able to try to get the word out about that. The one thing I do want to note that parking is limited down there, and we have a note on there that we're trying to encourage people to park downtown and walk to the facility. If there are needs for special accommodations, we're going to try to get the word to us, and we can try to help facilitate that. But parking is limited due to the ongoing construction and the fact that the new central pier is now pedestrian only, so there's no parking on that area anymore.
And Brian, I've gotten a couple questions about the format. Is there going to be a formal presentation, or is it all informal, drop in whenever you like, participate when you like?
Yeah, we struggled with that one a little bit. We went back and forth, and the format that we've landed on is to not have a public presentation. We're going to be there the whole time for questions and answers for sure. We tried to pick a time that would be appropriate for that, a format where we would have chairs, where we would do a screen. It just became clear to the team that it was going to be difficult to do it that way. It was not that it wasn't thought about, but it's a tough one to do. And that way, having a truly open house it's a long period of time, and we're trying to avoid a giant slug of people so that people can, come through and actually have FaceTime and talk to us. So it was difficult to decide the format, but we decided to go away from an actual presentation. Okay, so then the last couple slides here. This is now moving on away from the sub-area plan amendment, but this is our preview of some of the things that we do anticipate will be coming to the commission for an actual vote in the next few commission meetings. As you know, the Harcourt has expressed interest in the board mill building, transforming that from the current use or non-use to a hotel conference center. And so we are working with potentially amending the master development agreement boundary. You can see this is the current, I'll use this again. This kind of hatched areas is the current MDA boundary. It does not include the board mill building. We had to relocate the western crossing footprint to allow for us to then now work with Harcourt to get that into their MDA. We're working on what the layout of that would look like and how we could modify this to facilitate getting them in and access to the board mill building. That's something we'll bring forth to the commission in a future meeting, but I want to get that on your radar. We are also, as I mentioned, the Harcourt's working on the waterfront residential. There's a couple renderings down here at the bottom of what the proposed waterfront residential might look like. They're still working on refining those, but that's a preview. And we have a few steps to go through. We have to approve their project memorandum, which they submitted to the port in November. Then we've got to finish the parcel creation and then actually get a purchase and sale agreement that we'll bring forward to the commission. And then finally, we'll be bringing forward prior to April 1st a sub-area plan amendment application that we'll bring to the commission for approval to go ahead and submit. And then the last one, this is one that has come up in the past, but it hasn't gone away. So the city of Bellingham, if you recall, there was a request from the city of Bellingham. They'd been partnering with a nonprofit called Scan Design, which was providing a grant to the city to take a group of folks over to Copenhagen, Denmark, to participate in a planning exercise. That was one where it would be 75% grant. They would pay for up to 10 people to go over and participate in that effort, and then come back to Bellingham, hold design charrettes, and work on a variety of different elements that we could then, at the time we were hoping would move us forward on this sub-area plan amendment process. That didn't go through, and we thought that was it was a done deal. But actually, the Scan Design and this co-urban firm really wanted the city to participate. They've have a great relationship with like Bellingham Technical College, a variety of other different users where they've done these, and they really reiterated, hey, can you really maybe think again and see if there's a way we could get this put back together. So they have brought this back. They have focused it a little bit away from the waterfront district specifically, but they now have a proposal to go do this 5-day master class focusing on urban design and parks in urban design. And the city has asked us to participate again. And so we would be looking, the city has already approved their team, and they are looking at moving forward with it. And if it seems appropriate, we would put together an interlocal agreement with the city to participate with up to two members from the port team. So I just wanted to get that on the radar. We're still working with the city on the details, but it is probably going to come back for a commission consideration. Seems like a really great opportunity, and it's 75% grant funded and be a very nominal cost to participate. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. That's the wrap up of the update.
Yeah, I have some questions along the charrette thing. So if we're to send folks over there, the outcome of this is going to be focused on what?
It's going to be focused on urban park design. So really, it will inform a fair amount of what the layout of like whether it's Waypoint Park or the existing commercial green or the Maple Street alignment of the downtown waterfront park. Because that's not one of your classic, in the woods types of park. It's obviously in an urban environment. How do you do urban design elements that facilitate a park-like feel as well as interfacing with commerce and businesses and vehicles? And so it's aimed at an urban park design charrettes and considerations.
Mr. Powers is in the audience, and I would like to ask him a question about this. Do you feel that this will facilitate your development group in doing this project, something of this? Is this something that's an asset to the project to do this?
If I fully understand the question, Commissioner Briscoe, I presume that we're all in the project together, and I suppose anything that will help to inform, make an educated process should only be of assistance.
So this you feel would assist the project?
it would assist the project and assist ourselves, the city and the port in terms of understanding any anomalies that may ever exist or questions, and help to inform educated answers.
Thank you very much.
I'm personally going to weigh in and say that I am interested in seeing some of this because I'm interested in seeing how transportation is going to impact pedestrian foot traffic and shops and how you make that usable down there, especially given the state of transportation these days,
Right.
and how we're moving away from gasoline, big cars, and Ford Raptors and the like. We're moving into other things.
Skateboards and bicycle lanes.
I do think it's a great idea to try to get some ideas to how to make that a more interesting, walkable, usable, pedestrian-friendly space. And then the only other question I've got is, can I call my wife and see if we can go? You said two, right?
Yeah, well, and they did, yeah, they did say staff was what they would prefer, but yeah, no, it's.
Half. Hey, we might get you a temporary job on staff.
It is one that actually, you know, when you think about the European model, especially Copenhagen, has a huge bike population. They have a very extensive park network. The interesting thing about this is that they're bringing over folks from the UW School of Design as well that help lead this and then come back. So urban design professionals that come it's not just a trip to Europe, it's really taking expertise from the Pacific Northwest. The co-urban folks are actually based here in Bellingham. One of the individual who's leading this up is based in Bellingham. So really has a stake in making sure this is successful. It's not just going over to a conference. It's really to do a design effort, and then they come back and facilitate charrettes and design discussions here in Bellingham as well, and then have an end product with a resulting kind of proposal and recommendations that then can develop policies and set the design tones and those sort of things. So it really is, I mean, my opinion is that I think it has a lot of value to it, regardless if it was in Portland or somewhere else. I think that the concept has a lot of value to this project.
What's the time frame?
They're looking at sometime in May, so we'll probably be bringing the interlocal agreement forward at maybe the next commission meeting. They need to start, I think the city team's already started purchasing airline tickets and that sort of thing. So they do really want us to kind of commit or not, and then we'll go from there.
So that would be 5 members from the city,
I think 10 from the city.
Yeah, I think it's either 8 and 2 or.
Those guys.
Yeah. I mean, they have their urban design team, their planning department, they're really trying to, and their parks department.
And the downtown partnership is sending a representative as well. So covered by the grant would be 2 from the port, 1 from the downtown partnership, and I believe 7 or 8 from the city.
Right.
And are they going to be looking at other parks within the city limits besides at the waterfront, or it will be specifically focused on the waterfront?
I think we'll be able to scope. I think it's not specifically focused on the waterfront. It actually, but they haven't defined the full scope. I mean, this is one of the true urban parks though that you're gonna be working on. They do want it to be an urban park design. They probably will be able to export some of those concepts to other parks though.
But the original proposal was for it to look at the entire waterfront plan.
Right.
And now it's being constrained to just looking at the park.
Yeah, I think public open space as well. I mean, not just park, but public open space. Whereas before, we were really hoping that it could help lead some of the work prepping us for the sub-area plan amendment. But we're already doing that now, like we've just discussed. So now how can we repackage that opportunity to get, design experts that can help on other elements? And that's, this is what they came up with, especially with the downtown partnership, really wanted to have a role in that as well.
My understanding is transportation still plays a big part in it. It's not just parks, that, biking, pedestrian, all those transportation methods are a big part of this.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it intentional? This is the first I've heard UW was involved?
No, I think we mentioned that before, but maybe I wasn't as vocal about that before. Does that change your opinion?
So my part of clarification of why I voted the way I did the last time this was brought forward to us. I kind of, at that point in time, I felt we were putting the cart before the horse. We really didn't know what we were going to do over here. We were trying to figure it out, and I had faith that we could figure it out here without going there, and I think we did that. That was proven. We may have had some help through the wires. I'm not sure. At this point in time, I think we're going to have a plan in place before we decide we're going. And I think that it's going to be a good idea. We know what we're going to do, we know what we've got, we need help arranging it. So it makes sense to me to do it at this point in time, whereas before it didn't make sense to me to try and figure something out.
Sure.
That included all of this parks and everything when we didn't know what we were doing to start with.
Right, right.
So,
And I think we're reaching that kind of refinement process. And so having those external, especially expertise in the urban design field, urban planning, to have eyes on the project and make sure there aren't any ahas that we're missing or could really be done much more effectively or efficiently. For me, I'm very interested in the cycle flow and just the pedestrian and cycle flow from the north end to the south end, and how that works, and making sure that we've done as well as we can to facilitate that being a really highly pedestrian-centric environment.
Yeah, I think one of the other elements that's reminded me of when we were first talking about this. One of the things that we wanted to focus on, regardless of this one or even the previous one, was that cycle connection or pedestrian connection with the grade change, which is even though there's concepts, I mean the stair steps and all that, but really the actual examples of that. And they had a few really interesting examples of how that had been done in a harbor area where there was a large grade change. So that's all of these kind of elements, or we still have to struggle when we truly get to design. So I think that there's a lot that can come out of this with those elements. Okay. Well, any other questions?
I just have a question from my fellow commissioners to see if we're all planning to be at the open house tomorrow, and if we can schedule ourselves so we're spread out.
You should tell Brian we're through first. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So that it's a long span of time from 3 till 7, and if we're able to get as much coverage with at least one of us there throughout the time period, that would be great.
I'll be there from 3 to 7.
Wow, what a champ. Gold star. Okay. I'll be there in the beginning for sure at 3, and I'll stay at least until 5 or so.
And I've blocked off the time frame, so I probably will go in and out, just depending on traffic flow. So, yeah, I'll be there as well.
Can I get a ride with you?
Yeah. And then I've got a couple other things for other business.
It's a buddy park system, isn't it?
There's a couple of things, and again, I'm going to indulge the commission. First of all, what an amazing thing that I've learned the last few weeks, and I want to get this off my chest before I go into other business. This staff is second to none. Been to the airport, I've dealt with the real estate, I've seen personnel, I've seen the planning department, and I am amazed at the amount of things that this commission, or the past commission, and what this staff has accomplished over the last 4 years. It is absolutely stunning when you think about the things that had to be balanced, the number of political entities involved, the number of obstacles in your way, and the number of things that had to be overcome in order to get us where we are. At the end of the day, we've got an amazing development about to happen. Thank you to the past commission for putting us on the launch pad, because it's going to be easier for us from here.
And thank you to the past commission prior to my being here.
Yeah, it was. It's an amazing thing, and I will tell you that, Rob, you have assembled an amazing staff, and I am absolutely in awe of what we've been able to accomplish over the last few years. And I don't know that that gets said enough, and I don't think that some of you get the credit that you deserve. But seriously, it's been amazing. And the airport, what a job you've got. Thank you. And real estate, thank you. So I just wanted to say that first. The second thing I wanted to say is I want to add something to the agenda for next time. I would love to talk about the Seaview building and the construction over there, because I do think that's worthy of a discussion, just based on the number of jobs that are available, and it's not on this year's budget. So I just want to revisit that, and I want to know everything there is to know about why that is, and if we can add that to the agenda for the next time. And then the last thing is I can't wait for the city to see this building that Harcourt has built, because it is a piece of work. It's a beautiful thing. With that, I'm done with my comments.
And I'd like to reiterate what Commissioner Bell said about our staff and our executive director. I think they've done a great job over the years for all the pitfalls everyone's had to deal with, all the pointing and accusing from outside, and still get a good job done. We've got a long ways to go, but I have confidence that we're going to get the job done right, and we're going to get it done right the first time. That's about all I have to say about that.
Any other comments?